2 days between the election and the January 20th inauguration.
The most difficult transfer of power in history.
She's huddled with her transition team, poring over briefings.
I'm concerned about her domestic counterterrorism agenda.
What about getting out? If the war isn't winnable, what are we still doing there?
Excuse me?
Ready?
You think Al-Qaeda's first attack was an
Iraqi girl who was gang raped by Americans.
This is where the founder of the Jewish Defense League was executed.
The website is starting to see more traffic. We are definitely on the radar.
Do not fucking move! Don't say a word! Tell them nothing!
This is ridiculous. He's not a terrorist.
That's for a court to decide.
Law enforcement needs to stop harassing and demonizing an entire community.
What are you doing here?
How do we deal with homegrown, violent jihadists? By targeting the most radical individuals to preempt their acts of terror.
Assalamu alaikum, Sekou. We were contacted to handle your case.
We took a look at your website. The FBI is saying it's material support for a foreign terrorist organization.
Get your hands off of me!
Since when is engaging in political debate online a punishable offense?
And its intent is to motivate people to attack the United States.
You're going to Abu Dhabi. We have intel that the Iranians are cheating on the nuclear deal.
I'm here to find objective evidence of a parallel nuclear program.
After the inauguration, I expect our hands are going to be tied.
Deja vu, Dar. Last time we were wrong about WMDs turned into a national nightmare.
This whole country went crazy after 9/11, and no one knows that better than I do.
Wholesale reform of the CIA.
She despises us. She intends to hold us all accountable.
I will not have my agenda undermined before I even take office.
Stand down.
No, you stand down.
No Saul?
No, so.
It's probably for the best.
When?
What happened to me?
Give it up one more time for Elizabeth Marvel. Let's hear it. President-elect, thank you so much for being here.
My
It's an
pleasure,
honor.
my pleasure.
This is the second time that you are playing a sort of political animal.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
How did that come about? Were you ever expecting this in your career?
You know, I definitely wasn't, and my 10-year-old son finds it hilarious. But it's a wonderful opportunity as a woman in the arts to be messaging this at this moment in time. I find very exciting. But no, my history as a performer does not necessarily lead to this, and it's incredible because there's nothing better to play than the leader of the free world or someone trying to become the leader of the free world. And the fact that I've had a couple of swings at it is very interesting.
Now, this season of Homeland takes place during the sort of transition of power, which is supposed to be the the peaceful transition of power, which we had here, I guess. Sort of. And your character is in many ways a sort of maverick, and it's one of the ways that Homeland is able to sort of tap into political conversations that are the climate without tapping into very specific ideologies that are kind of on the front page.
That's right.
Where do you think your character comes from, and how often do you find that you have to pull back because you suddenly start tapping into something that feels like too much of a specific sort of like red or blue ideology?
Well, that's a great question. It's very interesting. I think one of the great strengths of Homeland is its consistent ambiguity, and that you never quite know where anyone is going or where they really rest. So you're constantly questioning the morality of each character. And that is no different with mine. Where she begins and where she goes this season is pretty radical. And I can't really speak to it, and you'll have to tune in and watch it.
Radical in ideology or just a radical shift?
Both.
Oh, fantastic.
Both, yes. Yeah, because these guys, the folks on Homeland, they're in the writer's room the entire season. Like, they don't come out with the season before you shoot it and sort of have it. They're constantly working away while we're filming, and up until the last moment of shooting, they're writing and rewriting. And
are you shooting right now, or do you? Okay, so you're still in the midst of shooting. So
yeah.
In many ways, the show, whether it wants to show its hand or not, is reacting a little bit to the sort of current political climate.
Yes, but it is not docudrama. And as you said, we do get to sort of have our cake and eat it too, because they have, with Elizabeth Keene, the character that I play, they have created this maverick who is an individual that has never been seen on the political stage before, and is definitely creating her own narrative as it unfolds. And it's not completely defined at the beginning. You see someone who has just won, but you don't see the campaign. And so you don't know exactly what her ideology is. It's not completely defined at the beginning of the season. So there is a lot of room for us.
We don't necessarily see her gloating every speech that she gives during the transition of power.
No, we don't. No, she is truly a public servant. She believes in that.
Now, what's so interesting about her in reference to the current political climate is that she, in many ways, wants to sort of reshape and rethink the intelligence community, which Homeland is a that's what Homeland is about in many ways, is the intelligence community in this country. But the difference between her, I think, right now, is that she has, I would say, sincere interests in reshaping and rethinking the intelligence community.
That's correct. She also, yes, and she has a deep respect for the intelligence community and understands, unlike other people that we will leave nameless at this moment, because as we know, there are three legs to the stool. There is legislative, there is military, and there is the intelligence community. And we need all three legs of that stool being balanced for the government to sit and function. And because what does our intelligence community do? What purpose do they serve? They're men and women who risk their lives, their fucking lives. And I think this is a point that gets missed a lot in our current conversation about the intelligence community. These people are as patriotic and as dedicated to us, to the fabric of democracy, as anyone in the military, as any public servant. And it's not some political, espionage game these people are engaged in. They're risking their lives. They're risking each other's lives. They're putting themselves in danger. And
there's a lot left over in this country in terms of perception of the intelligence community. I think a lot of perception left over from the 50s and
right.
60s, and maybe even some during the Bush administration, which the intelligence community, for worse, I think, took a lot of the brunt of poor decisions.
That's right. That's right.
Decisions.
They became the whipping boy for that administration in many ways. Absolutely. And not to say that the intelligence community, there aren't factions that are politicized, because of course there are. But that is not what dominates, in my opinion. And so these people go to other parts of our world and gather information and bring it back for the president to make the best decisions possible on how to. They're intel gatherers in some very complicated, dicey areas, and they are just doing that to bring information so that our government can make the most educated decisions, choices on policy with various and sundry governments around the world, and that's what they're doing. So we need them. We need to support them. We need to, do what we can to enable them to do their jobs and not create more danger for them.
More division?
More division.
Yeah. Going into the show, going into being a part of the show, a show about the intelligence community, we said, what kind of research did you want to do? What were you looking for? Not just in terms of who your character is and what defines your character, but what defines the rest of the sort of world of the show?
Oh, that's interesting. You know, I kept it pretty simple because they didn't really go into where it was going to go. I really just focused on what happened during the transition period, what that involved, and researched a lot of presidencies.
You were. I read that you were looking at George W. Bush's presidency specifically. Why is that?
Because there were threads of him in Elizabeth. He was someone. He is someone. It was mainly a lot about energy, because she's someone who never really sits down. She's always on the move. She wants to take input on the fly, and I wanted to dig into that. But, you know, I also researched Shirley Chisholm a lot for this character.
First African-American senator, right?
That's correct.
That's
yes,
unbelievable.
and the first female nominee for the Democratic Party for president. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really? I did not know that.
Yes, that
Wow.
is true. Yeah.
So what made you research her?
Because she was a maverick, because she is someone who had discipline and dignity, and those are characterizations of this character as well. For as hot as Keen can be, she also has a core that is very disciplined and dignified. And also, you know, what Shirley talked about, you know, this woman did not get a seat at the table, so she brought a folding chair. You know, she fought her way to this position, and she got there in the way that Shirley did. And so she was just a very useful reference for me.
Is it also important to have those kind of like, you have George W. Bush, who you can sort of mentally picture as someone on the far right spectrum.
Yeah.
Well, I guess far right in 2003.
Right, exactly.
Moderate
That's
right in 2016.
I would call him a moderate right now. I really would.
We would somehow call him like a sane and like
It's so interesting that
well-intentioned
we are
person.
looking fondly back at the great oratory of the Bush administration at this moment.
Someone who said things like, where dreams take flight.
That's right. Sounds so poetic.
Right. Yeah. Where now all we get is kind of like,
yeah, the
Kill
weird
'em.
sniffling. What is the sniffling about?
the sniffling and the mouth stuff.
And the
It's
weird mouth stuff and the choppy hands. Yeah.
whatever this is. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to keep someone who is sort of on the Democratic side and then on the right side in your head. And I
Yes.
wonder if you do that not just for particular the idea of energy, but sort of when you get into situations, sort of being like, oh, I'm going too far this way. Maybe I
Yes.
should think this way. Because you do
Absolutely.
want Homeland to sort of rest somewhere in a...
In that ambiguity.
yeah, exactly.
Yes, in that middle space, absolutely, absolutely. Because she doesn't enter the story fully defined, and we don't want her to be, and we want you to find her throughout the story. And because, as we know, when people take over that position, it changes them, and they have to adjust and adapt to the role as well.
Now, I have to ask, Homeland is a fictional show, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd imagine that most of the writers who work on the show, the creators and some of the people, are very well informed, are reading the newspaper daily. Maybe even some of them have contacts in the
They
intelligence
do.
community.
Yeah. They have a big meeting in DC once a year with many folks. Yeah.
What are the conversations on set right now about the real world?
Well, it's interesting because we have a lot of folks working on our crew who are from other countries, and this ban has affected them personally in a very serious way. So we've been talking about that a lot. A lot of us went to the airport, went to Cadman Plaza the other night, and so
JFK,
yeah,
Saturday night.
yeah. So there's been a lot of talk of solidarity and support on set. There's a lot of encouragement to each other to just put your phone down because it's just fucking killing all of us. Just put it down and let's just do our job and we can tune in at the end of the day.
That's kind of been someone recently said to me when I was talking to them, they were like, it's okay to put up walls. And the walls that are okay to put up are not on the border, they're the ones between us and the constant assault.
The barrage, yeah.
Of bad ideas and misinformation that are just making us I can't say all of us, but a number of us, the majority of us, crazy and angry.
Yes, and it's exhausting. And as we know, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So self-care is really key. And connection to those around you is key. And not necessarily, it's not necessary to be like-minded, but we're humans on the planet and we need to connect with each other. And so, because I have to say, on my crew, on Homeland, it's not that everyone subscribes to the same political philosophy by a long shot. But we connect to each other as a community in the workplace, and that's a good place to begin.
I just want to say one thing. It's not a question, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to use a soapbox right now, but the one thing that's really has bothered me about the Muslim ban is that the conversation has changed to the problem of it being a confusing rollout. And you kind of want to say, sure, the rollout was confusing, but that's not the major issue with this.
I also don't understand how we have a Muslim ban on one side, and then we have the need to change the laws about religious freedom. I'm confused.
Well, apparently the ideology of a few of the people that are in the senior administration, I don't know if I can say that it's the ideology of the president himself, because who knows?
Who knows what that is?
Who knows
is there
what
one?
That is? Apparently it's whatever the last person in the room said to him. But no, that's true. That's a quote from a senior aide. But Bannon,
we can't make this shit up, can we?
No, we can't. Bannon and Sessions believe that Islam is not a religion and is actually a political ideology and political activity. So thereby extending religious rights to what they believe to be religion as being able to donate to political activities, they will be taking away Islam's right to be a part of that as well. Islam in this country. Yes. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm going to change the subject to something a bit more fun. You are in Noah Baumbach's new film coming out with Ben Stiller, Adam Sandler, an incredible cast.
Dustin Hoffman, Emma Thompson, Candice Bergen. Yep.
What was that like? What's that set like?
It was the fucking greatest thing in the world. It was the greatest. It was awesome. I had never worked with any of them. And Adam Sandler, I know, and Ben Stiller played my brothers. And Dustin Hoffman played our dad, and it's a story about this family, and so we spent a lot of time together.
And what's the name? Da Du Den Kissa, right? Or what? Ya Den Da Kissa?
Ya Den Da Kissa. That's the name right now. I don't know if that will ultimately.
What is that?
I don't know. You have to ask Noah and Adam. It's something that they had going on. I'm not sure. I can't tell you. It's also called the Meyerowitz story, so it could. I'm not sure what it'll ultimately be called.
You've also been in a couple, if not a few, Coen Brothers films, right?
Yeah.
How did that work out, and what's it like working with them?
That is sublime as well. I love them so much. How did it start? I met them, and they heavily vet their actors. They even call other people about you, because the reason is their set is run so smoothly, and you come in the morning, everyone's home by dinner, they storyboard everything before they shoot it, you get your sides for the day, and you get the storyboard, so everyone knows what shots you're making that day. Yeah, it's awesome. So there's no withholding, there's no mystery, it's super efficient, and yet wildly creative. So it's fantastic.
Well, the writing is so creative, and they also are incredible at creating sort of three-dimensional cartoonish characters at times. Like specifically Burn After Reading, which is like It's one of the funniest movies of all time, but I'd imagine no one is straying from the script, but at the same time has all the freedom in the world to act totally insane.
Completely. And everyone's goal, because the brothers sit behind their monitor, you know, and they're lovely. They're just the best. But they're quiet, you know, and the great goal that we all have is to have this happen at the monitor. If you see that happening, you know you're doing a good job.
That's how they quietly laugh at things that are...
Yes, yes. No, they're the best to work for. They're amazing, and they're sort of, you know, in the more older tradition of they sort of create a rep company of people and then source from that group over and over again. Same with Noah. You know, once you kind of begin working for him or for the Coens, it's kind of a lifetime engagement, which is.
Yeah, I've heard
fantastic.
that specifically with Noah, that his editors, his shooters, a lot of the time are people sometimes that he keeps under contract even when he's not making movies.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that in case a movie starts rolling through,
that they're there.
That they're there and they can come aboard.
Yeah, and it's the same with I mean, not that they keep people under contract, but there's a lot of folks that have done, you know, 10, 15 films with them.
What does that do for the actor who's doing maybe their first project with this person? Is it almost that you can turn to a lot of people on set for
Absolutely.
direction and help?
Absolutely. I remember my first day on Burn, you know, Fran came to my trailer, everyone like Tilda showed up and was, you know, it's a family. It's very much a family feeling.
As an actress, what was it like getting the chance to work with Frances McDormand?
Well, it's the greatest, isn't it? It's the greatest. Frances and Tilda, I mean, that's as good as it gets, really.
They're amazing in that movie. They're so weird.
I have yet to see a movie where either of them aren't. You know, but really. I mean, I just saw Doctor Strange and I was like, you're amazing. Yeah.
I've yet to catch Doctor Strange. I'm sure she's incredible in it though.
Incredible.
Let's turn over to the audience for questions. You have a microphone, so I'm assuming with that microphone you have a question.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, good.
I was wondering, what's the vibe kind of on set like? Because I feel like there are no casual conversations in Homeland, so it must be very high stakes all the time.
You know, that's a very good question, but you'd be surprised because we all have our game faces on when we're in front of the camera, but we really got to blow off steam. So there's a lot of silliness. Yesterday, I was in a car with Mandy from about 7 in the morning till about 10 o'clock last night. And if you had been a fly on the wall, you would have heard much silliness go down. There are many silly conversations on set, but I mean, yes and no, because also Murray, I've known Murray since I was in my 20s because we did King Lear together like shortly when I got out of school. So I've known Murray forever, and he is...
By Murray, you're referring to F. Murray Abraham.
I'm sorry, F.
Yeah.
Murray Abraham, who, yes, but he's hilarious. And magnificent and very serious. But no, there's a surprising amount of fun on the set.
Is it also fun? I mean, you're joining the show a number of seasons in where these guys, sort of their old hands at these characters at this point. So I'd imagine they have even more fun in between setups.
Yeah, because they are. It's a family. They've lived together for 6 years. Absolutely. So there's a great ease and comfort. Yes.
Next question.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, good.
So my question for you would be, given your role and the kind of context that you have maybe on the election and in the political climate in general, do you think the USA is actually ready for a female president?
That's a fantastic question. And it's interesting because during the campaign, I did feel like, you know, Americans want daddy. They don't want mommy. They want daddy. And I don't know up until this point if America was, but I think now more than ever it is.
I think we're going to come out of this with a female president, to be perfectly
I
honest.
think we're going to, if we survive the potential nuclear Armageddon, if we make it, but I'm not fucking kidding.
I know you're not kidding.
If we move beyond the apocalyptic dystopia that is being threatened at this moment, and we get to the other side of it, which I believe we will, I think it's going to be a burgeoning of forward movement.
This is these are the
death throes.
They won within their death rattles. The demographics are against them. We were just talking about this backstage.
That's right.
The demographics are totally against them.
Mm-hmm.
They are about to prove through bad policy what good policy needs to take shape.
That's correct.
You know?
And I think a new movement will come forward out of that. Because also I believe that the democratic system is broken as well. There needs to be a completely new movement that comes forward, and it's happening.
If you think about it just this way, when George W. Bush left office, he had a 24% approval rating, like the lowest approval rating of any president leaving office, I think, in decades.
Since Nixon, maybe.
Maybe since Nixon. Well, he was impeached, yeah. maybe since Nixon.
So it'd be hard to beat that. But
and right now, the Trump administration is pulling us into the George W. Bush policies on steroids.
Yeah.
People don't necessarily know it. The people who are going to be the most affected by it, they don't know it. They're buying into a certain media that is pushing this agenda. But when that agenda starts taking shape and it starts affecting their lives, they are going to
when
rebel
Medicare
harder.
and Medicaid gets taken away, when their
401ks drop,
when their water is poisoned, when everyone's flint, these absolutely.
You are going to see rebellions in this country that are even greater than the Women's March. I mean, they are going to join the Women's March. It's going to be an incredible moment, and hopefully Fox News doesn't somehow buy that too. Sorry. I think we have time for one more question.
Oh, man. Okay. So when you were doing research for your role this season, I was wondering, when you looked into the transition of power, what was one of the things that surprised you the most?
That's a great question. There were many things. I never understood that the PDB, the Presidential Daily Brief, which is basically what all of the different agencies kind of create each day for the president as a kind of rundown of what's happening all over the world, so they can kind of get these bite-sized pieces of information. I always assumed that was kind of a standard form. It was presented a certain way. There was, a way that information was given, and that's how it was done with the president. But that is not true, and each president has their own way of receiving it and dealing with it. Unfortunately, our current one does not engage with it at all, which is terrifying. But
takes us back to that nuclear Armageddon dystopia
that's
you're
correct.
talking about.
That's correct. But in presidencies past, for instance, George W. Bush did not like to sit still very long. So they got someone from the intelligence community to go running with him and break it down for him while he did his morning jog or in the gym. And that was a great, he was very receptive in that kind of environment.
I also heard recently that Barack Obama had a specific iPad.
He had his iPad, and
Yeah.
and they did certain graphics for him, and he was much more visual, and he was much more meditative, and also and President Clinton wanted a lot of information. He was a very big reader and wanted to digest a lot and wanted to dig into it, and so it was much more methodical and much slower with him. So each one sort of approached it in their own way, and the community then therefore tailored it to them and their personalities, which I found really interesting.
Donald Trump likes it to be read on Morning Joe in the morning, or Fox and Friends.
Or Russian news.
Ooh.
Oh, I did.
It's true. It's true. It's all true. On that note, I have to let you go, but Homeland is on every Sunday night on Showtime at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Ya Dendu Kissa, right? It should probably be coming out later this year, right?
Yeah, I think in the fall.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.